Sit up, tall, buttocks down, thighs down. Make this mental, if not physical, effort to sort of lengthen that thigh. If you're sitting high enough, it is possible to lengthen the thigh and lengthen the shin from the knee to the toe. So remind yourself of the length of the legs and sit up straight. Spine tall, sides of the vertebra coming up, sides of the waist coming up, back ribs lifting. As the spine lift comes up through the upper body, release these arms down. Make the arm longer, more relaxed from its root at the skull, down that back arm, back shoulder, back arm, back shoulder, down to the hand. When you join your palms, that same sense of release from the skull, down the arm, around the corner to the palms, that same sense of extension persists. That's how you join the palms. Keep your chest lifted, collarbones broad. In this way, take your attention in. In that interior space, pay homage to the root teacher of this practice, Patanjali. And bow your head. Release your hands. Raise your head. Open your eyes. Stretch your legs. Change the crossing. Thoroughly stretch the leg first. Right out to the toes. Right out from the hip to the toes. You may separate the legs to make the sensations clear. So the inner leg is extending, the outer thigh is drawing back to the hip socket. So there's always this element of the thigh bone staying in the hip socket. At the same time, the leg extends. So what that means is the extension, the inner thigh releases to the foot, the abdomen, pelvis releases away from that and up. So there is an extension. And the inner body, thigh bone stays in the hip socket. This outer leg has to be firm. The buttocks release down, and from the hamstring extend toward the heel. So doesn't look like much, but it's organizing the activity. Change the crossing. Other shin in front. So with the leg awake, extend through that big toe. Extend through the big toe. Extend. And let go. Draw the spine up. Now, first stretch the arms toward the, away from the spine, away from the skull. Now, sit down, keeping the thighs and the hips. Reach out through that inner leg and shin. Tuck the outer thigh. That extension of the inner thigh helps you tuck the outer thigh. Buttocks down. Spine up. Take your arms up now. Interlock, turn your palms up, stretch tall. Stretch your elbows. If interlocking the fingers like this doesn't let you stretch the elbow, there's something in the shoulder, then you need to take, sorry, I didn't get one, a strap and hold on to it so you can straighten the elbows. Now, stretch your toes. Buttocks down, lift your ribs up, inhale progressively to widen and lengthen your waist. Release, come out. You're inhaling, you're in this tight stretch. There's not a lot of room actually in the diaphragm. We're going to change the interlock in a second. So your breathing may feel relatively shallow, but your sense of direction is always in these side ribs to widen and lift, coax them up higher. You are, let's go. First reach away from the skull, away from the spine, then turn the arms, keep releasing away from the skull and spine. Change that interlock and Urdhva Badangulyasana. Now, before you're fully extended, maybe straighten the arms, but work those ribs, lift the ribs, interact between inhalation and exhalation, and those back muscles spread and lift. And release, come out. Now, you need to take Adho Mukha Virasana, but a particular way. So here's my setup. Let's say you have tight shoulders and tight hips. So that's some of you. So with tight hips, you take some kind of support or also knees, so that when you go forward, your back thigh always is grounded. So you note this. So I'm going to say, if you put a blanket in between your heels and buttocks, there should be a blanket under your head at first. Whatever height you add here, you have to add at minimum that same height under the head. Many of you will need more than that because there is stiffness I want your head down. Okay, so minimum. And if you've got nothing, if you're in the full pose, your head can go to the floor. Okay, start there, measure your space, and be able to straighten your arms. This is important, just as it was in the previous pose. Stretch forward, press your palms, straighten the elbows. Keep that extension of the arm going away from the skull and spine. Lengthen the spine. Raise it up off the thighs to widen the ribs. Inhaling, begin or continue, but maybe deepen the interaction between your breathing, inhalation and exhalation, and your ability to extend those ribs. So you come up inhaling and widen, lengthen the ribs away and stretch forward. Spread up and down the rib cage. Now, notice where the shoulders are. You could look, or you anyway, understand where your shape is, what your shape is, and sit up. Now, we change the pose. So if you're flexible, you might set up something like this, a good height. And you see it's wide, shoulder width, right? A bolster is shoulder width. If you don't have a bolster, you make a pile of blankets folded, and it will amount to the height of a bolster. And I've even elevated that on some bricks. So it's almost like two bolsters. It's tall, okay? Now, you can have something for your head to touch. Buttocks down on blankets or whatever, and you go forward.
Devon, are your knees together?
No, it's the same.
Wide apart?
Not super wide,
Okay.
but wide enough that I can breathe between.
Okay.
And these side ribs get a bit of support.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
So, but even saying that, look, I'm going to come forward and stretch those ribs and take my head down. So I really get the armpits open and the spine a bit kind of distinct from the shoulders. Keep those triceps rolling. Take the hands wide if you like. You can even turn so the palms face each other. That helps you roll the triceps in. And if you press on that bolster or blanket operation, you may get an opening in the chest that lets you spread the ribs more. Spread lengthwise, spread widthwise. Interact between your inhalation, exhalation, and the ribs, the abdomen, the chest, the pelvis, the head, radiating outward from that rhythmic breathing. Spread. Now, come up. Now, you need to pull these props off to the side and take Adho Mukha Svanasana, but tuck your shirt in. We're going to have a little movement here. So in this kneeling pose, we'll call it a kneeling pose, you want to figure out how to lengthen your trunk. So I can be like this and it's one pose, but now I'm sort of working to move my hips back and move my head forward. And it's kind of like my legs are resisting backward and my arms are pulling my trunk forward. Can you figure out how to use that shoulder girdle to pull your rib cage forward and hold your hips back? The more you try to, if I didn't hold with my hips, I would be doing this with my arms, pulling, but I can't because my legs are holding back. My hips are staying heavy, and instead I'm pulling the rib cage forward. And you can pull that extension on inhalation and exhalation. It's independent of the breath. All right. Do you get at least the idea that if you have difficulty with that, you should pursue it? We'll keep pursuing it in other poses, but it's a helpful thing. We'll keep looking at it. Now, up you go, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And as you do, you want to imagine that your head is staying put and your rib cage is spreading away, and your waist and your hips and the heels come up, that leg stretches, inner leg long, outer thigh tucking to the hip, stretch into the floor, lift up to the pelvis, draw the leg back, spreading the rib cage, lengthening the trunk. Take your heels to the floor by lengthening. And release, come out. So we're going to try again on that trunk extension business, but in a formal asana. So you might need a strap, but the idea is standing in feet apart, about hip width, standing in Tadasana. Watch this first. You will fold forward. Now, hopefully, your hands can go to the floor. If they can't, then you need doubled strap underneath your feet, and you get as close as you can. If you can't go to the floor, go to the floor. All 10 fingers on the floor, go to the floor. Maybe all 10 fingers on bricks, you can do that. But it's nice to have something to pull up. All right, so did you find that prop? So watch what happens, and then you'll do. I don't want your backs to get tired because it's strong work. Look at the length here. As I go forward, I'm attempting to keep it. I don't want to shrink it deeply to go to the floor. I don't mind if it shrinks a bit, but you have to have some room to maneuver. That's where the bricks or the strap comes in. So once you get ground, you've got to lengthen the spine. Press your thighs back and pull on the floor to move your trunk forward. Or you pull on this strap, you're pulling back on it. Or you put your hands on bricks and you pull back. You'll have more luck if you put a brick under your shoulders. Okay? So you pull through your shoulders, raise your bricks, Cliff and Gay. Both of you raise or get chairs. Chairs actually work marvelously. That thoracic spine has to be able to draw forward away from the waist so that you can relax the breath and the abdomen will just softly release inward and forward, part of the lengthening of the trunk. Now pull the thighs back and pull the floor back with your hands to lever your chest forward. Your back shoulder muscles pull back. Now, if you, that's better, Gay. That's getting there, Cliff. But if you come up higher, that middle bump in your back will, yes, activate. So you can really draw all those back muscles down, away from the skull, and move your spine forward, away from the hips. Now, you get tired doing this, so relax, bend your elbows, hang your spine down, legs straight, just hang. Keep the legs actively vertical, straight, pulling back. From the buttock bones, stand on the heels. From just above the buttock bones, hang towards your head. Side ribs, front ribs. Now, hands on the hips, very firm in the outer hips. Inhale, come up, strong in that outer thigh. Okay, so just stand straight for a bit. We're gonna get out of intense forward bend action. That pose, right? If we did its fullest form, you'd hold your big toe and pull your trunk forward until it actually, until your chest becomes not necessarily your thoracic, but your front thoracic becomes very back bend, feel it concave in that chest there. This is, if as you see it, it's just straightening out. But it feels like this deep extension that comes straight from the pelvis. That's the part that has to get joined to this extension. Okay. So get your abdomen away from the legs now, but do it first, stand down. Legs go away from the spine and away from the skull. So you have to feel that leg stretch to the floor, affecting, drawing from the very brain itself. Now the arms, They too extend away from the skull. And if you use it right, they feel like they add to the weight going into the floor. And the spine comes up. Now take your arms up, interlock your fingers, pull up, get rid of all that compression in the front spine, all of it. Stand down, stretch up. So your back waist, front waist, side waist opens, interact with that inhalation, spread the ribs and lift them higher before you exhale. Widen, stretch up, lift, and exhale, release the arms down also. Okay, so get a chair. Take your chair. You need a chair and a wall. Here's a wall behind my foot. Okay, and it's of course a leg length away from me. And you don't want to, let me turn this camera a little bit in case you can't quite see. When you raise that leg, oops, when you raise that leg, don't push the heel against the wall. It's the toe. Okay, actually you might prepare to do both, but ultimately it's just the toe. Okay, now just stand there for a second. You found your position, you found your measure. So stand up and stretch your legs and stretch your arms. So what you're going to do is keep those hips firm, stretch the leg into the floor, take your right toes back, keeping your balance. Stretch both legs to the floor. Then this leg is going to lift, still stretching, and you take your hands to the chair and your toes should land on the floor. So you're working with balance, with firmness in the hips, and not losing the pose. Now, those I see, Cliff, raise the leg more. Get your toe higher up the wall. Yes, pin that toe on the wall. That's it. Now stretch your leg. Absolutely stretch the leg straight. And pull backward with the standing leg, left leg. Don't let your hips go crooked. That right leg is up and it reaches for the wall. Now, before you lose everything, pull your ribs forward. Pull your ribs forward. Keep your foot on the wall and move the ribs forward. And then release, come out and stand up. Side two. Now, let me say, if balance is troublesome, best thing to do is get rid of the sticky mat, the uneven surface, and work on a hard floor if you can. So, because ultimately this is totally a balanced pose. So you could move sticky mat operations off to the side. Find your location and stand up. So the firmer the floor, the better. Stand straight from the buttocks down, spine up, ribs up already. Reach the arms down. So the arms and legs go away from the spine and skull. And for now, it's the left leg, big toe that goes back. Outer hips firm, both legs straight, spine stretching up. And you pivot forward, firm in the hips, and bring your hands to the chair and your toe to the wall. Thighs back, hips firm. That toe that's lifted should point straight down. Now move your ribs forward. Inhaling, lift the ribs forward. Stretch your legs, both of them back. And then release, stand, and be upright. Okay. Now I'm going to put my stuff back down. So now, let's see. You're going to go forward, and maybe you want bricks under your hands. And by the way, this one, your feet are together. And you stretch forward. Now, when some of you are fine doing this, Cliff, with a lot of stiffness, you stay on the chair, but it's going far forward, right? So where's your wall there? You gotta find the wall and stand up. And you go forward, maybe to the chair, and you stretch it out far. Or you go to bricks and you walk them forward very far. Or your hands go to the floor and you raise that leg. And you push back to the wall and stretch your leg to the wall. And raise the leg more off the wall if you can. And stretch. And come out. Hips firm, hips square. Go into this pose if you have not yet, to a chair, 2 bricks to the floor. Go forward, 2 feet on the floor. Uttanasana with full forward extension. And then the right leg goes up. Go straight up. Now extend your arms forward. Push your bricks or your chair, or walk your hands forward on the wall and stretch your leg back to the wall. Walk your arms more forward. Stretch your leg higher up the wall until it finally comes up off the wall. Raise that back thigh up. And exhale, come down. 2 feet, Uttanasana. And stand up straight. Two feet. Namaste. Arms away from the skull. Legs away from the skull. Side 2. Fold forward. Walk your hands away from the legs. lengthen that trunk as far forward as you can. Keep the legs vertical, and then raise the left leg. And as it raises, keep the extension of the trunk and both legs standing firmly on the floor. Once you find the wall about hip height, stretch your arms forward, stretch your leg back, keep the legs pinned, and extend your trunk more forward. Raise the leg up the wall if you can, and do another extension of the spine forward. Interact with the inhalation and exhalation. Widen those ribs. Use the arms to open those shoulders. Raise the leg off the wall if you've got anything left in you. Stretch through the foot and release them and come out. Uttanasana. And then stand up. Okay. So, are you okay? Yes? Okay. I only know from the ones I can see, so I'm going to assume so far so good. All right, then let's do something sideways. You need a chair at the wall and probably a blanket or a sticky mat hanging over as a little pad. And it's a short distance from the wall. This is going to support your heel. Okay. So you might want to strap just for a momentary support. Watch how we're going to do this. First, you take the measure. You find out where your standing leg needs to be for you to have it straight. Lifted leg. Then, the way you're going to go to that pose is quite actively in this leg. So use a wall or don't. Stand firm, however you are. And look at my foot. I push out through that heel and pull the toes as I bend the knee. And I catch my foot and I bring it to Vrikshasana first with this big push through the heel. Okay. Then you can put the foot on the chair and you can put the foot out. But you want to go through this Vrikshasana and pull up tall through the trunk and stand down through both legs. So this Vrikshasana extension through the heel is actually coming from the hip and the buttock. Okay. Then that foot comes out and it goes onto the chair. Straight away, goes to the chair, goes onto the chair back. Stretch the legs straight. Uttita Parshva Hasta Padangushtasana. So you didn't use the strap, which is cool. Now, stretch your arms down. Stretch both legs down. Lift your trunk up and then take your arms up. Pull up tall. Pull up super tall. Stretch, stretch tall. Exhale, come out. Release, come out. Little cat interaction. Stand on 2 feet. Get yourself grounded again. And then change sides. So I can stay facing the camera and see a little bit. I'm just going this way, and I'm going to put my foot up here. Okay. So standing straight, that leg turns and the heel pushes. Okay. So the back of the calf is super long. And in almost slow motion, you come up with that foot. So you really do have to work balance. Now push through that heel, extend through that thigh, trunk up tall. Then the leg comes out and goes to its support. Buttocks away from the skull. Stretch out to those feet. Take your arms to the sides away from the skull and then up. Overhead, full extension. Reach out through the inner thigh. Tuck the outer thigh to the hip. Send those buttocks down, front spine up. And release, come out. Help your leg out with your hand. Stand on 2 feet. Are your hips okay? So now you do need a strap, and you can take it in a regular 6-foot strap. It can be folded in half. And if you put your finger inside the loop here, it helps keep the loop open so that your foot will easily get in without you having to fuss much. A double strap with a finger or two just holding that loop, that little stirrup for your foot open. Now also notice you can let out the strap quite long. And if your foot's through something this long, it's actually not even as high as a chair seat. So you should not need the whole length of this strap. Watch. Small loop, like as I showed. You can be with your back to a wall or near a wall. Push to that heel, go inside the knee, catch your foot, pull it up high. Stand on both feet, oddly, and stretch this leg straight forward. So when it comes out, that foot turns vertical from the side, vertical. So you let out that strap. If you need to, straight arm, straight leg. Stretch tall. Release, come out, bend the knee. The elbow should go inside the knee to release the pose. You do, Chaya, and anyone else, you do take support under the foot if there are organic issues or structural issues. You could also do it if the hamstring is very tight and feeling injured. You can work with it on height. But Chaya, you've got to back up so your chest is open. Open that chest up. Vertical. All right, side 2, it's time. Loop, looped. You stand straight, stretch the arms and legs away from the skull. My cat is making trouble right now. She's biting the tripod. Bend the knee, keep that heel extended, push through it. Draw the knee up high, draw the chest up high. Stand firmly on that leg, keeping your shoulders back and trunk upright. Push out through that foot and let loose on your tether until your arm is straight, leg is straight, horizontal, foot up higher, gay, yep. Chair height, stand straight, shoulders away from the skull, down, and the chest up. Good for these, come out. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So you might need bricks. Take your feet wide apart. And be there for a bit. With the legs apart, it takes a little more sorting to push those legs away from the skull. And stretch your arms. Shoulder. Okay. Now, hands on the hips, you go forward, and the arms come down to bricks or the floor. But what's the criteria? Can you keep the spine long? Thighs back, weight heavy on the whole foot. Push from the hip socket, buttocks to the feet. And push from the arms, drag your trunk forward. And then release that spine down. Take your hands back between your feet. Keep the shoulders broad. Keep those legs pressing evenly on the floor. So the activity of the leg is even. This protects the knee and the hip, all the joints. Press from the hip to the foot. Keep a lift coming up, lightening the pelvis and letting it fold over. Take your head down. Keep the shoulders away from the skull. Soften your abdomen. Find an interaction between inhalation, exhalation, and the rib cage, letting it widen and disengage from the abdominal region. So that belly, pelvis, abdomen region releases. No grip. Now, prepare to come up. If the legs got lazy, get them back. Bring the feet closer together if you have no choice, but make those legs firm. Hands to the hips. Inhale, come up from the hips. feet together. All right, so now get a blanket, sorry, or a brick. We're gonna sit in Virasana, okay? So, and I wanna do it by stages. So, facing away from you, excuse me, you sit first Vajrasana, relax, I don't know, 5 seconds. Then the heels come wider and you must settle. Then heels wider still, settle. The knees aren't changing. Once you lose the support of the heels under the hips, it may be that you need to insert support because the knees are stiff. Once these heels get just outside the hips, turn the feet straight. So they're no longer toeing in, you turn them straight. Okay, so stages, 4, 5, 6 stages in the course of a minute or two. The knees stay together. As you take a new stage, only the heels come apart, the toes and knees stay together. This causes a rolling of the thigh. And you get to a point where you have to widen your heels a bit and the toes come apart. And this is where you might need to bring in a brick between your ankles. And the very last stage, don't change anything else, but turn your feet straight. So those toes point straight back, not toward each other. And you have whatever support behind the knee, under the buttocks that you may need. And sit up straight. Buttocks down. Shins continuing to reach back to those toes. Stretch back. Reach the arms down, away from the skull, and then raise them up. Tall, very tall. Open up the waist. Now, take your right hand down behind you. Can you reach it behind you? Can you catch your left big toe? Can you catch your left big toe with your right hand and your right knee with your left hand? And turn. Now, if you can't catch your big toe, the strap can loop around the base joints of the toes. You can just run a strap there and hold that strap. Or the big toe. Come out. Fix your Virasana as needed. Arms away from skull. Big toes reaching. If you need a strap, put that strap in place right there where you can get to it. Now your arms come up and lift those ribs away from the hips, both sides. You got one tight side, work at it. Now, the hand that's going in back comes down first, and it reaches for that big toe. Firm grip. Now pull up high through the left arm and cross it over. Right arm, sorry, cross it over. Lift your trunk up, turn. buttocks down. Chest up, shoulders back, collarbones broad. Turn. And release, come out. Good. Then you come up and you take both feet to your left side and sit back down on that brick. So, Bharadvajasana time. Stretch your arms down. Keep this Virasana leg stretching. Buttocks down. Take your arms up. Take your ribs up. Fully lift the ribs. I should have said, if you need a strap around that big toe, prepare it. And then the right arm comes down and catches the left big toe. And the left arm reaches up tall, and you turn and catch the right knee. Buttocks down. Turn. Bharadvajasana. After a bit, right, at first, this left arm is pulling. Then you turn your palm out and you push that shoulder back and move your chest deeper into the pose. And come out. And take your legs out. We'll get them out completely here. Now, can you come back into Virasana just briefly? You don't have to take that long road in, but go in carefully and be there for a second in symmetry with that support, that appropriate height. Okay, now we'll make the change. You come up and the feet cross over, the knees don't really change. And you sit back down on that brick, which is presumably in the same spot. The only thing you've shifted is your ankles. Now you may be more crooked or on one side than on the other, so make a note and make adjustments as you need to. Then stretch through that Virasana foot. Stretch through the arms. Keep this, the buttock that tends to go up, put it down. Arms up, buttocks down. Lift those ribs. Stretch up tall. And the back arm comes down first, going for the big toe. Should be your left arm going down behind you first. And pull up tall before you cross over with the right arm. And first your palm faces that left thigh and you pull your trunk up. Both arms pulling away from the skull and they're helping you turn. Buttocks down. Then you can turn this palm out. So now you work more through that shoulder blade, that back arm. And out you come. Stretch both legs. Now, you have a brick or two. You might want a blanket for under your shoulders or your neck and shoulders. And putting this out of the way. So you have a brick or two. Two is just more, it's broader support. This is Chatushpadasana first. And actually, even before Chatushpadasana, there's this moment of settling that spine. Then catch ankles off your heels, see very, very long foot there, and lift up. Shoulders tucking, lift up. Keeping those ankles long, shins long. Come up. And you take a rest and lower the heels. The reason you're coming up so high on the tippy toes is to give you lots more room to extend that spine. Pushing the heels down actually lowers, shortens, you might say, the leg by inches, which means that many inches lost of sort of room to curve. Go up again. High on the tippy toes. If those knees don't come in close, feet don't come in close because the knees bother you, it's still okay to be way up high on your tippy toes, just further out. Now go up high, roll those shoulders, lift your ribs, and place one brick or two underneath your sacrum, vertically, not tipped in any direction. So if there are two bricks side by side, it just makes it kind of a square pillar underneath the whole sacrum and the ilium. It's like a tiny cable underneath you. And the single brick is more meant to be a spinal support. Lift your chest, stretch your arms. Reach that back arm away from the skull. Shoulder blades away from the skull. They're going, I don't know how to put it, down your back toward the buttocks, but also up your back toward the ceiling. They're going up. That chest spreads and lifts and lengthens. Gradually develop the interaction between the inhalation, exhalation, that spreading and lifting of the rib cage away from the hips. Find a way of keeping those ribs spreading and lifting so the space in the abdomen and pelvic region is increased, maintained, cleaned, developed. And interestingly, just to give you the right image here of development, it's not development in this Western sense where it gets cluttered up with, you know, development. Development in yoga terms means it's like emptied, and what you feel is spaciousness. The spaciousness between the objects. Soft throat, soft brain. Now, carefully press the feet. This time, press the heels too on the floor and pick the hips up off the brick and keep the hips up. So you've gone back into the active mode, but hopefully the neck, head, throat can stay soft. Now you can remove the brick and come out. Long spine, soft throat. And be at rest in that spine. Now, if there is stiffness in the low back, you are more than welcome to keep your knees bent and draw one at a time. Draw those knees up toward the chest to lengthen the low back. Keep the abdomen soft, ungripped. You can do one leg at a time. Then roll to your side, come up sitting, and your Shavasana will be with the chest elevated on one, or if you're comfortable, two folded blankets with a pillow for your head. So it's your choice. If, you know, it's interesting if you're, I don't know what to put it, but two blankets is not necessarily twice as effective as one blanket. You can do on one blanket a really remarkable setu bandha like you did on one brick. You can do it on one blanket. So I'm saying one blanket is plenty for some people to really get a lot of open space in the chest. So you must experiment. Don't assume two blankets is always the formula for a elevated chest shavasana or a pranayama shavasana. Anyway, you take one or two blankets under your spine, and everybody gets a separate blanket for your head. And you would take Shavasana, an effective chest lifting, shoulder blade tucking, low back, happiness inducing Shavasana. Keep that head support blanket out from under your shoulders. Keep it rolled or folded or fluffed in some way underneath the neck, that the neck and throat are completely content and open. And it's really going to vary. For some people, that open and happy and easy breathing space has the chin lifted away from the throat. For others, it is the back of the skull lifted far away from the throat. So it could be that you need to lift kind of the front skull up or the back skull to complete the space. Disengage the arms and legs from that brain. Keeping yourself quiet. Just know that it's the end of class. So you can stay there for a little bit, or you can bring yourselves out. And to all of you, I say Namaskar. And I'll see you next time.